Today we are going to discuss assessment of fetal well-being, that is continuation of the last lecture. The learning objectives of today's presentations are recall of the previous lecture, that is the role of ultrasound in assessment of fetal well-being. So we have to a quick review through the previous lecture. As we discussed in the last lecture, the ultrasound has a major role in assessment of fetal well-being. Ultrasound is used for confirmation for the size, site of pregnancy, the number of pregnancies, whether it is single or multiple, and for the confirmation of gestational age. It is also used for placental localization, for the amount of the amniotic fluid volume, and for the fetal growth. In today, the main topics are the cardiotocography and the role of Doppler ultrasound. So at the end, you should be able to how to interpret cardiotocography, that is shortly called CTG, and the value of CTG in assessment of fetal well-being, and the role of Doppler ultrasound in management of high-risk pregnancies. What is cardiotocograph? Is described by his name. CTG is the continuous tracing of fetal heart rate together with an assessment of uterine activity. This trace show CTG. This line is fetal heart rate, and this line show uterine activity. Now how we perform CTG. This is the CTG machine. This is the recording paper, and this picture show how we perform CTG. CTG is done by placing two probes on maternal abdomen, one for fetal heart rate and other for uterine activity, and the trace is obtained on a running piece of paper. This the probe for uterine activity is placed at the uterine fundus as the contraction is generated from the fundus, and this probe is placed where fetal heart are heard on ultrasound, and then this probe is placed on that point. And then we push the start button on CTG machine, and we record the tracing of the fetal heart and the uterine activity on this paper, and we read the CTG from this paper. Fetal cardiac behavior is regulated through autonomic nervous system and by the vasomotor, chemoreceptor, and baroreceptor mechanisms. Pathological events such as fetal hypoxia modify these signals, and hence cardiac response include variation in fetal heart rate pattern, which can be detected and recorded in the CTG. There are four main features of CTG from which we detect whether the fetus is normal or there is some abnormality. These include baseline heart rate, baseline variability, accelerations, and deceleration. In the next slide, we will discuss these four features in detail. First is the baseline heart rate. Normal fetal heart rate at term is 110 to 150 beats per minute. Higher rates are defined as fetal tachycardia, and lower rates less than 110 is defined as fetal bradycardia. This is a CTG trace showing fetal tachycardia. This paper On this paper, there is documented now fetal heart rate, and in this line, the whole line goes at the 180 beats per minute. So in this shows that this the fetal heart rate is more than normal. And this slide show the fetal bradycardia. In this picture, most of the fetal heart rate, these are the beat to beat variability, but the maximum heart rate that goes through this line, this, and this is less than 110 beats per minute. The baseline heart rate is best determined over a period of 5 to 10 minutes. Means that not only for 1 or 2 minutes we will do CTG, but we will do it for at least 10 to 20 minutes, and then will we determine what is the baseline fetal heart rate. Fetal tachycardia can be associated with maternal tachycardia due to infection or fetal infection, or it may show acute fetal hypoxia, fetal anemia, and in response to some drugs, for example, antiallergic. And fetal bradycardia mostly show chronic hypoxia. The second main feature of CTG is baseline variability. It is under normal physiological condition, the interval between successive fetal heartbeat varies. It means that the heart rate will not go fixed. Sometimes it will be 120. After a few seconds, it will be 125. It may be up to 130, up to 115. It goes up and down and change every second. And this variability is normal. Normal baseline variability is considered abnormal when it is less than 10 beats per minute. The baseline variability is modified by the fetal sleep state and activity, and also by hypoxia, fetal infection, and drugs suppressing the central nervous system, such as opioids and hypnotics. So, as fetuses display deep sleep cycles of 20 to 30 minutes, so most of the time the fetus may go into sleep for at least 20 to 30 minutes. So when the fetus is sleeping, that time the variability is less than 10 beats per minute. So if we do a CTG for 20 to 30 minutes and it show the variability less than 10 beats per minute, but the baseline heart rate is normal, it means that the fetus may be sleeping. So we have to prolong the CTG for at least 90 minutes or more than 90 minutes. So if, if before after 30 minutes the baseline variability is normal, it means that during the 20 to 30 minutes when variability is less than 10 beats per minute, the fetus was sleeping. Third main feature of CTG is fetal heart rate accelerations. These are increase in the baseline heart rate of at least 15 beats per minute, lasting for at least 15 seconds. This picture show the fetal heart rate acceleration. This is the baseline fetal heart rate, and this is acceleration, that is increase in the fetal heart rate of at least 15 beats up, and it lasts for more than 15 seconds. This is one acceleration, and this is another acceleration. The presence of two accelerations on 20 to 30 minute CTG defined a reactive trace, and fetal heart rate acceleration is a very good sign of fetal health. Fourth is fetal heart rate decelerations. These are transient reduction in fetal heart rate of 15 beats per minute or more, lasting for more than 15 seconds. This is absolutely opposite of accelerations. Decelerations can be indicative of fetal hypoxia. There are two types of decelerations: early decelerations and late decelerations. Early decelerations are mostly in response to uterine contractions, mean that when we read a CTG, during that time that the Toku probe is going up, mean the uterine activity is increased. That time, because of the transient pressure on umbilical cord, the fetal heart rate goes down, and as long as the contraction is ended, the fetal heart rate goes to normal. That is early decelerations. And another is late deceleration, mean that during the contraction the fetal heart rate are not going down, but as the contraction lasts, after that the deceleration appear. And late deceleration is a dangerous sign of fetal hypoxia. So from the above four pictures, a normal CTG is defined as the baseline heart rate of 110 to 150 beats per minute, with baseline variability exceeding more than 10 beats per minute and with more than one acceleration seen in a 20 to 30 minutes trace. There will be no deceleration in normal CTG. Deceleration, either early or late, are a sign of fetal hypoxia. A suspicious CTG must be interpreted within the clinical context. If there is any risk factor other than abnormal CTG, the delivery should be expedited. If there is no risk factor and CTG is suspicious, we have to repeat it after 30 minutes or 1 hour, depending on the clinical scenario. To refine the role of CTG, the other fetal parameters are used for assessment of the fetal well-being, and overall score is obtained to define whether the fetus is healthy or not. This this is this use the five parameters, and it is called the biophysical profile. The biophysical profile have five main components. The four are the acute fetal variables, and the fifth one is the amniotic fluid volume. The four fetal variables are the fetal breathing movements, the fetal gross body movements, the fetal tone, and the fetal CTG. This chart shows a biophysical profile. A score of 0 or 2 is given to each parameter. For normal, a score of 2 is used, and for abnormal, a score of 0 is used. So, this chart shows the biophysical profile. The first one is non-stress test. If CTG is reactive, a score of 2 is given. And if CTG is non-reactive, a score of 0 is given. If the fetal breathing movements are seen, more than one episode lasting for 30 seconds, a score of 2 is given. And if fetal breathing movements are not seen, a score of 0 is given. Fetal gross body movement. If more than three discrete body movements are observed, a score of 2 is given. The fourth is the fetal muscle tone. If more than one episode of extension of limb or trunk with the return of flexion is seen, a score of 2 is given. Tone mostly we examine in hands. If the fingers are flexed, and extended, it means the tone is normal. And the fifth is amniotic fluid volume. Amniotic fluid volume is measured by two methods. One is the deepest vertical pocket, mean a single pocket is measured, and the other is amniotic fluid index. Amniotic fluid is measured in the four quadrants, and all the four are then added, and the AFI is then calculated. If during ultrasound more than one pocket is seen and measuring 2 centimeter in two perpendicular planes. The deepest vertical pocket, called DPV, between 2 to 5 is normal. If less than 2, it is called decreased lacquer volume. And if more than 5, it is called lacquer is increased. So if the deepest vertical pocket is less than 2, a score of 0 is given. And if it is more than 2 centimeter, a score of 2 is given. As I already told you, that a score of either 2 or 0 is assigned to each variable to give a total score of between 0 and 10. A score of 0, 2, and 4 is considered abnormal, and a score of 8 or 10 is considered normal. Score of 0 means that the fetus is almost dead, and 2 and 4 are mean that the fetus is at high risk of intrauterine death, and 8 or 10 is taken as normal. Also, the biophysical profile is used as a parameter for the assessment of fetal well-being, but its role is limited because of many reasons. One is that biophysical profile is a time consuming because the fetus spend almost 30% of its time asleep. And during that time, the fetal breathing movement and tone are difficult to be seen. So if we are performing biophysical profile, it should be done for at least 30 minutes to exclude this physiological cause of a poor score. And if we done biophysical profile and we determine that the score is less than 6 or equivocal, it means that the fetus is already at severe hypoxia, so it may not improve the fetal outcome. So there is currently insufficient evidence from the randomized trial to support the use of biophysical profile as a test of fetal well-being in high-risk pregnancies. Now we are coming to discuss the Doppler investigations. In Doppler investigations, the waveforms can be obtained from the umbilical artery and the fetal vessels and the maternal uterine artery. Umbilical artery Doppler. Waveforms from the umbilical artery provide information on placental resistance to blood flow and indirectly placental function. In a diseased placenta, secondary to any reason, for example, maternal hypertension or diabetes or any other reason, will have increased resistance to flow. Mean if there is increased resistance to blood flow, it means that the placenta is not doing its function properly. This picture shows the normal umbilical artery waveform. In a normal pregnancy, the blood will flow forward throughout the whole cardiac cycle, both during systole and during diastole. This waveform shows the blood flow through the umbilical artery. This blood flow is during systole. It reaches to the wave reaches to its peak during systole. It comes down during dystole, but it's far away from the baseline. So during dystole, this blood flow forward to the fetal vessels. This is the normal umbilical artery Doppler. When there is any problem in the placenta, the blood flow to the umbilical artery decreases. It may be reduced or absent, or at the end it may be reversed. These two pictures show reduced and reverse and diastolic flow. In reduced and diastolic flow, there is decreased blood flow in placenta during diastole, and in reversed and diastolic flow, the blood flow back during dystole. This picture show the normal umbilical artery Doppler waveform, and this show decreased blood flow during the diastole. This slide show the reverse and diastolic flow. This during systole, the blood flows forward, and during diastole, this comes below this line, and the blood flow backward. Reverse in diastolic flow means that during dystole there is a flow of fetal blood away from the placenta and back to the fetus. An increased diastolic flow indicates that there is low resistance downstream and there is hyperfusion. And in this decreased or extended diastolic flow, it means that there is high resistance blood flow and low perfusion. Normally, diastolic flow in the umbilical artery increases throughout the gestation. Absent or reversed end diastolic flow in the umbilical artery is a serious development with a strong correlation with fetal hypoxia and intrauterine fetal death. Use of Doppler ultrasound in high-risk pregnancies is a strong goal to improve the number of obstetric care outcomes and reduces perinatal deaths. Uterine artery Doppler is also used for the assessment of fetal well-being. Uterine artery Doppler at 20 to 24 weeks is used to stratify women with risk factors for small for gestational age. When there is increased resistance, a diastolic notch is seen in the waveform. This is diastolic notch. And when we perform uterine artery Doppler, this notch is seen. Uterine artery Doppler is mostly performed in patients with risk factors for small for gestational age. For example, patient with the non-hypertension, patient with early onset pregnancy-induced hypertension, patient with the previous history of preeclampsia or eclampsia, and patient with the history of thromboembolism, or diabetic patient with vasculopathies. Ultrasound and invasive procedures. Ultrasound is used to guide invasive procedures such as amniocentesis, chorionic villus sampling, and cardiocentesis, and therapeutic procedures such as insertion of fetal bladder shunts and chest drains. The role of 3D and 4D ultrasounds. 3D and 4D ultrasounds are used as adjunct to 2D ultrasound to interrogate the fetal structures that may be difficult to visualize on normal two-dimensional ultrasound. And these are also used to demonstrate fetal structural abnormalities to the parents. The role of MRI in assessment of fetal well-being. Fetal MRI is used to detect mostly cerebral lesions. MRI may be used for the diagnosis of placenta accreta. Fetal brain MRI may be performed after fetoscopic coagulation of placental anastomosis to look for acute ischemic cerebral lesions in twin pregnancies after coagulation of the twin to twin transfusion syndrome.